Hello everybody, today we will be talking about square and cube roots. These concepts are all around us in mathematics and are fundamental in many areas of maths and even science. So let's get started with the square roots. The square root of a number is a value that when multiplied by itself gives us the original number. For example, the square root of 9 is 3 because 3 times 3 equals 9. We use a special symbol called a radical sign to represent the square root of a number, and it looks like this. Now let's walk through some examples. We have the square root of 16. To find it, we need to ask what number when multiplied by itself equals 16. So if we try 4, we can see that 4 times 4 does indeed gives us 16. So the square root of 16 would be 4. Next up, we have the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 equals 4. Positive 2 times positive 2 equals 4, and negative 2 times negative 2 also equals 4. So the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. Let's keep going. The square root of 1 works the same way. The square root of 1 is 1 because 1 times 1 equals 1. And again, we have two possible answers because positive 1 times positive 1 equals 1. And negative 1 times negative 1 also equals 1. For the next example, I want you guys to pause the video and try stretching your brain a little bit. This one is a bit different but still follows the same logic. So the square root of 1/4 is 1/2 because 1/2 is the only number when multiplied by itself gives us 1/4. Again, we have two possible answers. Just like before, we have both positive and negative answers. Now if we take a look at all of these examples, they all share something in common. They are perfect squares. Perfect squares are numbers that can be expressed as the product of an integer with itself. For example, 4 is a perfect square because 2 times 2 equals 4. Similarly, 16 is a perfect square because 4 times 4 equals 16, and same goes for 1 and 1/4. Now, not all numbers are perfect square. For example, the square root of 7, 10, 5, and 15 are all irrational numbers. A number is not a perfect square if it cannot be expressed as the product of an integer with itself. 7, for instance, is not a perfect square because there is no whole number that when multiplied by itself gives us 7. Same goes for 10, 5, and 15. And there are many more examples of irrational numbers. Now that we have the overview of square roots, it will be easier to understand the cube roots for us. The cube root of a number is a value that when multiplied by itself twice gives us the original number. For example, the cube of 2 is 8 because 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. We represent the cube root of a number with a radical sign like this. Let's take a look at some examples. The cube root of 8. The cube root of 8 is 2 because 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. Next we have cube roots of 27. What number when multiplied by itself gives us 27? And the answer is 3 because 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27. Pretty straightforward so far. Next we have the cube root of 1 over 125. The cube root of 1 over 125 is 1 over 5. Because if we multiply 1 over 5 by itself twice, we get 1 over 125. Now, all of these numbers are examples of perfect cube roots, meaning that they are cubes of whole numbers. For example, 8 is the cube of 2, 27 is the cube of 3, and 1 over 125 is the cube of 1 over 5. It's not always the case that the cube root of a number is a whole number. Now, numbers like 7, 20 are not perfect cubes because there is no integer that when multiplied by itself twice equals these numbers. And lastly, we have negative numbers. The cube root of negative 8 is negative 2 because negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 equals negative 8. Similarly, the cube root of negative 1 is negative 1, because if we multiply negative 1 by itself twice, we get negative 1. Next, we have the cube root of negative 8 over 7. Again, I want you guys to pause here and give it a shot first. The answer would be negative 2 over the cube root of 7. Because if we multiply negative 2 over the cube root of 7 by itself twice, we get negative 8 over 7. And that's a wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this exploration of square roots and cube roots. So keep practicing and try solving these on your own, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, keep learning and take care.